I'm Nate Jackson.
And I'm Eben Britton.
And this is the Caveman Poet Society. When you're in motion physically, your mind is empty. When you're sprinting physically, but when you want to go the other way around, when you want your mind to sprint, when you want your mind to explode, your body has to be still. You can't stop the wolf! You may make us change our name, but you can't trademark the wolf. Hello! Welcome to the Caveman Poet Society. Ow! My name is Nate Jackson. With me as always is Eben Britton. That's with 2 T's and an O-N. Hey, Eben.
Ow! Hey, Nate.
How are you?
I'm great, man. How are you?
Look, feeling good, feeling real good. Took a dip in the pool today. It's sunny, it's hot, it's in the throes of summer, as they say in books and stuff. Jed, what's up, man? You got a mic?
I got a mic in front of my face.
Motherfucker got a mic.
How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm happy to be on this new version of this podcast.
Yeah, it's a new version. It's slightly updated.
It's exciting. We're expanding what we're doing.
But at the same time, narrowing our focus.
Exactly.
And
ooh, I like that.
Yeah, wrap your minds around that.
Very yogic.
We believe in the power of literature, ideas, writing, delivering these ideas in person, creation, all the creativity that goes along with being an artist. But we also come from these different backgrounds where we didn't always get to express that.
Very brutish, very caveman
very much
backgrounds.
Wearing a lot of loincloths.
Yeah, a lot of loincloths and sweating and beating the shit out of each other.
Yeah.
While other people wrote the poetry about what we were doing. Eben and I were talking about this before we came over. What I've noticed as a writer is that writing is actually kind of hard on your body because you're completely stationary. You have to be completely still, and you get these sedentary type of consequences of your job, much different than football. But what I realize is that when you're in motion physically, your mind is empty. When you're sprinting physically, but when you want to go the other way around, when you want your mind to sprint, when you want your mind to explode, your body has to be still.
Well, you're going to be very excited to talk about my book in our book club that's coming up.
Well, I love it.
I love that, Jed.
That's a little tease.
But yeah, I think that's a really profound, idea or not even an idea, because it's just something that's true. It's sort of a, what do you call that? An illumination. When the body is in action, the mind is still.
Right.
When the body is still, the mind is in action.
Right.
Interesting.
And as athletes or whatever, people who have a lot of energy and played sports as kids, or people who consider themselves on the move all the time, you have to learn to play that other side of the coin.
Yeah.
And that's why meditation is so important, or finding something that keeps you still.
Is meditative.
But as in writing, I find it really hard to sit still. And so I have this sequence of events that I use to sit still, involving coffee and like a donut or two and like smoking a little weed sometimes. And then you sink into this process, and it could be bad for your body. But it's good for your mind, and it's good to get those thoughts out. So anyway, we're trying to strike a balance here. But I digress. I want to hit a song that I like to call Book Eben, you got a book for us?
I do. I it's one of my favorite books that really inspired me on my journey to become a creative writing major at the University of Arizona. One of the guys that inspired me to be a writer, to follow writing as a craft through my football career, and that's Charles Bukowski.
The Bukowski-nator.
Henry Chinaski.
Henry Chinaski.
That's right.
He's got a ton of amazing books that I suggest everyone just go head to Barnes & Noble, go to Amazon, start just clicking on Charles Bukowski's stuff, because everything is fire, from his poetry to some of his novels. And the one in particular today that is just, it's one of my favorites because it's just so fun. As someone who's lives the artist lifestyle, it's hysterically funny. It's a book called Hollywood that he wrote that I guess is semi-autobiographical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All of his shit is.
Right.
I believe it's about the making of the movie Barfly.
Yes, so it's about his journey as a writer coming into Hollywood and writing this screenplay and dealing with all the Hollywood people, the producers, and yet also, really being like this down and out drunk, and fucking a fighter and really a warrior of the streets in many ways. And it's a comment on the absurdity of Hollywood and making a film.
Mm.
And one of my all-time favorite books, such a great read, Charles Bukowski, Hollywood. Go check it out.
Yeah, man. That book, the opening scene, it takes place in Marina del Rey at some producer's yacht or boat.
Yeah,
or
a lot of it takes place in Venice before Venice was
right,
a cool place.
Is that
to
where
live.
he lived?
No,
it's,
but they come in here to kind of meet with those Hollywood folks who did live around here.
He keeps talking about parking at the Ralph's on Lincoln, and then
That's right,
because he had a BMW, so he parked it in a nice place and then walked into Venice. And that, if even like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it was
Venice is dicey.
Yeah, it was fairly dicey place to live. Not like terrible,
no,
but just like it's this kind of a weird place for non-rich people to be living right by the beach.
Right.
As you're, because the stereotype is.
Yeah, it's very LA too, which is fun.
The Hollywood?
Yeah.
It resonated with me too because it was just a lot of insight. I've dealt with Hollywood once with a book, and I didn't go so far as writing a screenplay for Hollywood, but he's like, all the illusions are gone with Bukowski. He shaves off all the extra layers and he really gives it to you like it is. Yeah. In every situation, every sentence is just like cuts to the bone.
So good. The best dialogue I think I've ever read.
Very tongue-in-cheek, very optimistic yet also drunk and fucking depraved at the same time.
Yeah.
Talks about drinking a lot, going to the racetracks.
Yeah.
He's a gambling man.
And then he'll have just some of the most beautiful musings on, a moment.
Yeah.
He catches moments. He's fantastic.
We could find profound, like, meaning of life philosophy in the most kind of down and out moment.
Yes.
Or down and out drunks or people who society's given up on. Definitely a champion of the people that were left.
The down and out.
The down and out, the people that were left behind.
Yeah, totally, man.
I identified with him as a writer at a time when I was going through my own little depression after playing and diving into literature and diving into my own writing process and being given one of his books and then just devouring them all.
Makes sense, man.
Because he was just so... He said, an intellectual says an easy thing in a hard way, and an artist says a hard thing in an easy way.
Very well spoken.
Yeah.
What got you into Bukowski, Eben?
My dad. My dad's a painter. He turned me on to Bukowski, Miller.
Henry Miller?
Yeah.
Hell yeah, dude.
Yeah, some of those greats.
Yeah.
Tropic of Cancer is amazing.
Those
guys were, I think Miller probably influenced Bukowski.
A little bit. Bukowski never really mentioned him.
No.
Bukowski would always just like talk shit about all the other writers.
Well, the thing my dad was always blown away by and always really respected and loved about Bukowski was that he didn't even start writing until he was, in his 40s?
Yeah.
And his first book he wrote in like 2 weeks because he was afraid they were going to pull the deal off the table if he didn't get it done.
Right.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah. He
worked in a post office.
Yeah. That was his first book.
Yeah.
Post office.
Amazing.
And
when people start writing, the writing teacher always says, write what you know.
Yeah.
And he's such a good example of that. And
totally.
He took it to a great art form.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
one of my all-time favorite writers.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've got a quote of his tattooed on my arm.
Oh.
What matters most is how well you walk through the fire.
Oh, nice.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's so spiritual coming from him because most of his books are, they have the plots involved around being super drunk.
So, yeah.
And having a conflict with his girlfriend or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very.
It's so in the mud his work, you know, it's just in the fucking grit of life.
Yeah.
But I always found in some way, he captured this spirituality. There was this sense of spirit within all his writing.
He's got a really interesting voice, too, to hear him read his work and to hear him being interviewed.
Yeah, go on YouTube. I think you can see a lot of his readings.
One of the things that Bukowski does and that Henry Miller does and some of our most famous writers do, Kerouac and even Hemingway and all them, is their stuff was so close to autobiographical. Mm-hmm. They like sheared these things off of it, but it was very much about their own journeys, you know?
Yeah.
And like it allows you, when you can do that, it allows you access to the real gritty truth because you're experiencing it. But when someone just like makes up like Harry Potter or something, like that's not rooted in any kind of reality, it misses that like that elements of rugged truth that
just fucking grips you by the soul.
That literature used to have and seems like it doesn't have much of anymore.
Yeah.
Maybe that's because there's not enough caveman fucking writers out there.
Yeah, dude.
So we kicking Harry Potter out of the book club?
No.
Yeah, Harry's okay. I mean, there's a place for fairy tales and shit like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that those are the best ways to capture the magic of life in those types of stories because we lose so much of that in our fucking, you know, in this very material environment we're all in.
There's no more fables.
Yeah, and that's important. You know, life is fucking magical, dude. It's full of magic. On a cellular level, the shit that's going on that we can't see is fucking mind-blowingly magical. I went on a tangent.
It's all right. We know you love Harry Potter.
I actually never read the books.
I haven't either. Have you read the books?
No.
Oh, I guess Harry Potter will not be
Harry Potter
in our book club.
No. So Charles Bukowski, man, caveman poet himself.
Yep.
Yeah,
check it out.
You guys said Kerouac. Before we move on, do you think Kerouac is a hack? Because a lot of people don't like Kerouac.
Kerouac.
I mean,
is he Kerouac?
Look, I mean, he's
I love his poetry.
Yeah, for someone who like he captured the essence of some kind of mystical feeling of the time.
Right.
But he did it like on the back end of it, where like his book On the Road didn't get published until the movement was already dead for him. Like he was basically a mid-30s, late 30s guy when this thing got published, and it was about being like young and free in his 20s, and it was just a very kind of naive tale about like what's waiting out there for you if you have this life of adventure and stuff. Pretty starry-eyed. You never really learn anything. He never really evolves as a writer, and I think people thought he was a hack that way. Also because writers are about editing. They're not just like, here's what it is. Writers are diligent and precise, and they go back and give so many different versions of their script. Whereas Jack Kerouac wrote On the Road on one single scroll in like 16 days on a ton of drugs.
You think that delineate someone who's a writer from someone who wrote something?
All I'm saying is that can be the interpretation of why he could be a hack, or why he's not a real writer. Yeah, because that was his style. He said that he wrote like the jazz era. He wrote jazz, you know, and so it's gonna feel a little bit a little loopy sometimes. And but I enjoyed his writing because it kind of puts you. Because it puts you in that period of time, in the mind frame that was kind of taking over the literary scene. The beat poets started from that generation of writers.
Beatniks.
Him and Allen Ginsberg. Yeah. And Cassidy and, that crew.
Well, I think it's a very inspiring, moment in writing.
Yeah.
All of that stuff.
The 50s and 60s. And
yeah, like breaking out, because you got to remember at that time, man, America was white picket fence, 2 kids and a dog, dude.
And that's what that's what On the Road was.
Civil rights movement.
It was about breaking from that cookie cutter.
Yeah, it was punk rock in a way. And that's
for sure.
The same thing when you listen to the Sex Pistols now, you're like, this is terrible. Right. But at the time, you're like, oh man, they were breaking all kinds of ground.
Right.
Like by today's standards, it doesn't hold up as like a musical movement.
Yeah, genius.
But as I guess you would say, the culture of it was very important.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was, very just mind-blowing at
the
time.
For sure.
Freedom. Yeah, On the Road was hitchhiking and hopping a train and drinking moonshine under the stars. you know, and eating a can of beans on a fire that you made in the woods.
Yeah, and just scraping up some money so you can keep going.
And making it into a jazz club and bebopping, you know, and talking all night long and eating some amphetamines.
I mean, at the end of the day, we're talking about Kerouac, so still.
I
People are
appreciate
still
him.
talking about him. So.
I think his best book is Dharma Bums. If you were to read a book by him, On the Road is the hack book that everyone talks about. It's the most widely read. It has its moments, but I think Dharma Bums was his most kind of concise, vivid, and most immersive work.
Nice.
So that's a book club recommendation, right?
That's right.
Okay.
Dharma Bums.
Dharma Bums. And one more beat writer. Do you guys read Burroughs at all?
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
He was bad. He killed his wife.
Trying
to shoot a fucking apple off her head.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll bring in one of his books because...
He was a heroin addict.
Yeah, because he has...
Woo. He has some really interesting theories about the health of drug addicts and about how their bodies, and this was the cellular kind of repletion or the cellular regeneration that happens when you slam your body down on a bender or whatever, and then the cells die off and you regenerate and become back stronger.
That was his theory?
He has articulated that, yeah.
Interesting.
So it's like a fast, but with drugs.
Yeah.
Well, it develops disease resistance and that type of stuff, which I actually believe. I mean, you go out in the streets and see these homeless individuals. They don't get a cold. They don't get strep throat. They have very advanced antibodies that are fucking encasing their skin that ward off hepatitis A and all these fucking different...
Opium does kill the common cold. That's the only actual cure and prevention that's known to man.
Opium.
Yeah. So that's why heroin addicts don't get colds.
Really?
Yeah. And that's a hard fact.
Hard facts.
The next chapter in this book club is a book called Flow. It's the psychology of optimal experience. Steps towards enhancing the quality of life, and other subtitles.
Yeah, it's a lot of
It's just a bunch
psychobabble.
of words on that fucking cover.
So let's layman this thing out. Turn the psychobabble into
Caveman speak.
Caveman speak.
Exactly.
Well, this book is by Mihaly, and his last name is spelled Ciskzentmihaly.
Sikkamitahilii.
Ciskzentmihaly.
Sikkamitahilii.
Yeah.
Ciskzentmihaly.
Mihaly Ciskzentmihaly.
Oh, that was not it. At
That
all.
was really...
It looks like you're trying to.
Ciskzentmihaly.
Looks like you're trying to tie a cherry stem into a knot in your mouth.
Ciskzentmihaly.
6 cents.
Mahalai? Because his first name is almost the same as the last 6 letters in his last name. So it's very confusing. But anyway, if you do need to find it, the book is called Flow, The Psychology of Optimal Experience.
When was it written?
That's a good question. I believe fairly modern.
80s.
1990, actually.
90.
Okay.
So,
It's 28 years old. Okay.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? That's not even modern anymore.
No.
So
Can we
fucking old.
even count on anything that these people say?
Probably not. People
No.
in the past don't know anything.
Well, that's the illusion because, and that's what a lot of. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we are now in a point where, at the push of a button, we dismiss hundreds of thousands of years of evolution and conventional wisdom that actually has meaning for a reason. Like people have been studying this whole time. Then all of a sudden, these weird devices come in. We're like, our minds are scrambled. We're like, no, wrong. Like there is wisdom of the ages passed down from generations.
Absolutely.
Plant wisdom, psychological wisdom, family, community, diet, food.
Well, dude, we don't have that.
Exactly.
You know, because everybody, you know that kids are, the numbers of kids prescribed Xanax and antidepressants and shit is fucking through the roof. People on Xanax, you can't do shit on Xanax.
No. And they're going to be set up for a lifetime of drug use,
Dude,
too.
that's a brutal one, man. That's a brutal one to get yourself off of.
Xanax. Well, there's no Xanax in this book.
Well, this is all about how we do that without this shit.
Yeah, so it's about flow. It's about being in the zone. What other expressions are similar? You know, you're dialed in. You're what's the surfing one in the green room or something? Green tube.
Green tube.
But everybody understands this experience to some extent. And, the book is all about codifying it and putting it into neutral, fairly clinical terms, and avoiding things like, woo, I'm feeling the ether, man, like that stuff. I'm going with the flow, baby.
Right.
He actually makes fun of that expression fairly early in the book.
I'm going with the flow, man.
But what the book is mainly studying is this great word that he has, phenomenological.
Yeah.
Do you like that word? I like that word.
Of or related to phenomenon.
In that it deals directly with events, phenomena, as we experience and interpret them rather than focusing on the atomical structures, neurochemical process, or the unconscious purposes of these events.
So go ahead.
So he's not looking at brain chemistry. He's not looking at anything physical, biochemical. He's merely studying a lot of people. He just did case studies where he talked to people about flow. And it's all just like self-reporting. So it's like psychological. There's no what you would call chemical
data.
That's not what he's after. He wants to know, because for all he knows, and his studies were showing him that it's like, well, all kinds of people do it in all kinds of different ways. So what's the baseline? What's the commonality between all these things?
Yeah. I guess first you have to state your terms or define your terms. What does flow mean?
Yeah, I've listened to a couple of podcasts lately on this, but I want to.
Because if you're asking for people's anecdotal experience, it's going to vary so widely if the definition terms aren't ironed
Well, I
out.
can give you his eight
pillars.
8 characteristics of being in the flow.
Give us the 8.
And the 8 are: first, the experience usually occurs as we confront tasks we have a chance of completing.
Yes.
Second, we must be able to concentrate on what we are doing, so free from distraction. Third, the concentration is possible because the task undertaken has clear goals. And fourth, the task provides immediate feedback. So all these making sense so far?
Yep.
Fifth, one acts with a deep but effortless involvement that removes awareness, the worries and frustrations of everyday life. So you're not thinking about anything. You're in the moment, what we would call fully mindful.
Yes.
What we used to be called the mindful warrior. So we should all understand that, right?
Yeah.
Sixth, enjoyable experiences allow people to exercise a sense of control over their actions. Seventh, concern for the self disappears, yet paradoxically, the sense of self emerges stronger after the flow experience is over. So it's also, this is not something you honestly cannot be in a flow experience kind of constantly. It does require a little bit of pullback. And finally,
only in our modern American society.
Right.
Does it involve that? Because if you were living in an indigenous culture where you lived in the woods, you could be in flow state all the time because you're not self-conscious and you don't care about your identity.
Right. Well, one of the things about the flow state is you're not retrospective in your flow state necessarily.
No.
So to reflect, you have to come out of the flow state.
Right. Reflection is a very Western pastime.
So yeah, I see where you're going with that. And the last one is the sense of duration of time is altered. Hours pass by in minutes, and minutes can stretch out to seem like hours.
This basically sounds like being high on drugs too, because the flow state is probably drug.
It can be, yeah. For sure. Yeah. To your point, Nate, I think that there's a lot of validity to that. That if you were in this indigenous environment. I've been thinking about what is your experience like? What is my experience like without all the bullshit that I have to think about throughout a day? What is my moment-to-moment experience of life if I'm not thinking about the emails I have to send or social media or my family or anything really other than just exactly where I'm at in the moment? Whether it's with my family, whether it's here with you guys, whether it's at a business meeting, when I'm able to just be in the moment, like shit's kind of magical,
Mm-hmm.
And it's nearly impossible to attain these days.
It's very difficult.
Especially with your phone in your pocket.
Your phone is like the number one
thing.
Let's get out of flow state
God.
device.
Yeah.
And everybody is like, it's the phone is leading us through our day.
Yeah, dude.
Constantly changing plans. So much of it is contingent upon the next text I get or what this and that and that. How am I going? How am I getting there? Fuck. Like flow state, you leave your phone off.
Yeah, well, he has a great expression for that kind of stuff, and it's called psychic entropy, which basically means anything that is clouding your mind. And obviously, when you're in a flow state,
Right.
there is no psychic entropy. He talks about people are hungry, interrupts their thought process. All that stuff of, a lot of fear, anger, rage, all that messes with your psychic entropy and can throw you off. What you want is for the optimal flow state.
Right.
So how do you create the optimal flow state, Jed?
Well, first you look at activities that follow those 8 rules. And that's, sports being a great metaphor. He
Sure.
uses sports all the time.
Yeah.
One interesting thing he says about sports is that when your intention in the competition becomes about defeating your opponent, you can lose flow state.
Yeah.
Because
Makes sense.
That's a jealousy. There's kind of a
Anger,
there's
frustration.
psychic entropy.
To an extent.
I want to push back on that a little bit.
I love it, baby.
Sizza,
Push
Gizza,
back.
Gizza, Bizza, whatever the guy's name is.
Let's call him
Mahali.
Because as an athlete, I would gain quite a lot of joy in defeating my opponent. And actually that was many times what made me focus supremely, is wanting to crush someone.
To win.
And if you get like in a situation where,
Well, that's the goal.
right, that's the goal, and then in the heat of the moment, if there's like some extra shit talking that's happening on the field, you might lock so far into it that you become in the flow state because nothing can get in there.
Other than that battle.
And you winning it.
Yeah.
You
I've
know?
been in those games where it's just me and that D end.
Right.
And it like the game disappears because it's just about our battle every play.
Right.
My question to you would be then, okay, would you
Okay,
guys, would you rather play against somebody who sucks and you just wipe the floor with him, or play against somebody who is you're very evenly matched and lose by a small margin?
Even match.
So that's what I think he's talking about. He's like, you actually get more enjoyment, you'll get more psychological growth from that hard, really good competition where it's not about winning, but actually, elevating your game.
I mean, yes, it also sort of sounds like Snowflake, everybody gets a rib and shit,
Well, no, it's
It's a personal experience.
Yeah, that's the point of the flow.
like an enriching. How do you know what enriches? How do you know what is a psychologically beneficial, competition experience necessarily? I mean, you learn just as much from getting your ass whooped than you do from whooping ass, but just on different realms. And it colors a more complete perception of your own capacity to,
I do have a response. I'm just trying to find it here.
For those at home, Jed is thumbing through the pages of his flow book, earmarked.
So some of this enriching stuff he recognizes, and he wants to put it into words, because what is enrichment? But he basically says, following a flow experience, the organization of the self is more complex than it had been before. So that's learning, becoming more rounded in what you're doing.
And how does he present that it is more blank than before? Just
learning something new. Like if you go against somebody who's really, really good, you're evenly matched. You learn your weaknesses.
Right.
You learn his strengths and weaknesses. You learn your strengths, and you learn them in a more visceral way. I would think that when there's nothing better. You can watch tape on somebody, but getting somebody going hand to hand, that's how you're going to learn.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what he means by the enrichment, and it makes you better.
So when you learn what you're made of.
Yeah. So complexity is the result of 2 broad psychological processes: differentiation and integration. Would you like me to follow that up?
Hopefully another 4-syllable word with a shun at the end.
Differentiation implies a movement towards uniqueness, towards separating oneself from others. Integration refers to its opposite, a union with other people, with ideas and entities beyond the self. A complex self is one that succeeds in combining these opposite tendencies. Yin and yang.
Yeah, I mean, the yin and the yang is that's really important in the real world.
Yeah.
As the cavemen, we could just
yin
do the
and yang.
As caveman, it was just yin and yin.
Yeah.
Or yang and yang. We didn't see the other side of it.
Yeah.
And we didn't have people who taught us how to kind of rationalize the flow state in a way that brought us any kind of peace. It was always just the other side of it. You know, the attack, the kill.
Yeah.
And as a professional football player, really hard to get in the flow state, except for like Eben was saying, like, you know, those individual battles that can go on and you can get locked in. But football is so demanding from your mind to pull you out of it and think conceptually about ideas and plans and where to line up and shit, that it's really hard to lose yourself in that flow moment in football. But you can when it becomes second nature, when the system becomes second nature and you don't have to think about your plays. And that's why offenses and defenses can become too complicated, especially in the NFL, but it happens in college and even in high school, and it takes players out of the flow. It removes them from the opportunity to get in the flow.
Well, he addresses that in this book.
Yeah, you were looking through the book and not listening to what I was saying.
No, I was.
Just ready for the next.
No, because when you said, not optimal for flow, a game like football, one of the characteristics he does talk about those activities is a clear set of rules. And that doesn't mean like a book that's written out. It means like simple rules, and football rules are not simple.
No.
When you're talking about a lineman, it's much more simple. It's me and that guy. All I do is battle this guy all the time. The guy who's across from me, I just got to stop him. But when you're talking about routes, coverage,
that's right,
blocking.
Eben. You didn't have to memorize shit.
Usually.
No, but
even the linemen are very complex.
You described your experience, and that was like,
For sure.
yes, that's why that one is optimal, because it's simple. You're like, oh, it's just me and this guy.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
all it is. But
You
when-
do get that as a receiver out there, one-on-one versus the corner.
For sure.
You have a battle going all game. And
sure.
in college, I was in the flow all the time.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. It was
Just catching dimes.
just catching balls, man, and me and my quarterback just communicating visually, and there was so much telepathically going on that we were just kind of connected. I had nowhere to move. The ball was coming to me. I mean, just looks on the line of scrimmage, audibles without having to say anything. You know.
Beautiful.
And
That's the football
that was the flow.
flow.
And I think that was one of the devastating parts about playing in the NFL was that you don't find those moments as easy.
It's very rare.
And practice is so tense and unflow-like.
Yeah.
But you could find it. And in the games, there was a flow
Yeah.
sometimes. We could get lost in that.
Yeah. I got lost in some games.
Yeah. But basketball, much easier to be in a flow state.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Skateboarding, snowboarding, skiing, surfing. I imagine those are very flow state.
Yeah.
Soccer, too?
Centric
Yeah.
activities, sports.
The immediate feedback is one of those characteristics
Right.
that you can see why activities become satisfying, because when you know immediately you're doing well, it's a better experience and more optimal to your flow.
Yeah. And which brings me full circle to the potentiality to be in a flow state while on a bird scooter. Can you reach flow state on a bird scooter? I would venture to say no.
No, a lot of technology takes us out of flow state for that reason, because we're giving up some of the labor, and that's removing us from the feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're not engaged
piece.
in the movement. I don't know if you're just kind of standing. And I see that. The look on the people's faces who are riding them, definitely not flow state. Yeah. More like comatose. I saw a guy yawning on it the other day. Is this really that bad for you, man?
Heading home from Snapchat.
Yeah, I'm so tired.
I'm so tired of this automatic scooter that I just picked up off the street, and I'll discard like some coffee cup that I don't want, but I should recycle it.
So the broader context here is the flow state good for you, healthy.
Yeah.
Even does it have antibodies in it, or does it have?
It makes you a healthier person.
Can you read that piece that you read to us before the show started? I thought it was so good. It was like,
Oh yeah, because
the things that don't allow you to get into flow state, but are like our conscious resets.
yeah. So he talks about pleasure, and some people do enter a flow state doing things that are pleasurable: eating, drinking, sleeping, sex. But pure pleasure does not cause any psychological growth, and therefore it does not leave you that sense of enrichment and contentment that is unique to the flow state.
So interesting.
So you can't be in the flow state in sex?
No, you can.
But it doesn't have psychological benefits.
No, it doesn't necessarily mean that. It's just like, yes, you can. A chef obviously will be in a flow state when cooking wonderful food, and the restaurant critic will taste, the wonderful dish, and they will sit there and chew it, tasting everything, like being like, that starts with, it's got a sharp texture, and then
So that can be flow.
and then
Sharp
texture, and then
Eating glass.
taste blood.
Well, that's the thing, if a restaurant critic was writing and his words, his adjectives were that visual and visceral, you'd be like, oh, that's a good art or a good food critic. He's actually describing the mental state that the food is giving him. So that would be flow. But just mindlessly stuffing food in your mouth, you're just satisfying this pleasure, this hunger that you have. Does not.
But isn't let's say you're surfing a wave, you're fucking hungry to devour the wave, and that's what you're doing on the surfboard.
Right.
That's what you're
You're
doing
not
on the bird.
You're not like, the ocean spray is a little bit,
But you would be. I mean, I think if you asked a surfer about his best wave, you'd be like, yeah, it was partly cloudy.
Salty.
Yeah.
No, but not in the moment as he was doing it, as he was riding it.
But he would actually be aware of everything because that's part of the flow thing.
On recollection.
Right.
Not in the moment. As the chef who you just described.
He would be, as he's paddling, he's getting up on his wave, he's taking all the pertinent information in.
Right.
And not all of it is landing in his consciousness, but he's paddling. He's like, I pick my head up, I see, he notices the sky. He doesn't think about the sky.
He doesn't think I'm noticing the sky.
Right. He takes it all in.
I guess I'm just picking apart your food critic metaphor in a way that's a little bit too aggressive.
Well, that's that food critic's moment to be in flow.
Yeah, that's his thing.
That's his moment to be in flow.
And
just like the surfer riding the wave.
because although we've been talking a lot about sports, because sports are a very great place to get into flow because they hit all the buttons. You work, you train, you get better, you compete. When you win and you lose, all that stuff. So the sports are good, but he does talk about people who are just in the moment all the time. They're very attentive in conversation. They listen to people in a way that most people don't listen to people in a conversation. So,
Yeah.
But to your point, I understand where you're going
Sorry.
with that.
I hear what you're saying.
It's just been bad cop.
Yeah, of course.
Bad flow. But this little passage on pleasure. Pleasure is an important component of the quality of life, but by itself does not bring happiness. Sleep, rest, food, and sex provide restorative, homeostatic experiences that return consciousness to the order after the needs of the body intrude and cause psychic entropy to occur. So he's saying pleasure can help you reset yourself when that psychic entropy gets all up in your head.
Similar, I think, to football players being tackled or hitting. It's like this collision at the end of every fucking play or moment that resets you.
Yeah.
It's not like pleasure, but in a way it is kind of pleasure. You're chasing the hit. You know when you hit him good.
Yeah, when it's good.
And it feels almost pleasurable.
Yeah. But it's like a release, and sometimes the release you wish, when you look back at it, you wish you waited a little bit longer for that release. Not like, you waited longer to tackle that guy, but
Right.
in experiences it's like, oh,
You want it to build.
Yeah.
The pleasure. You don't want to hit that ding, 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 ding all day long every day. Mm-hmm. Because then you're constantly what? Replenishing, and you're not...
Well, yeah, you're not building up anything. If you keep cutting yourself off, you're not building in complexity and actually learning things. Because learning does seem to be a part of the flow experience, even if it's, just learning from that experience, not book learning, but experiential learning. And the final term that he uses, which is a good one, is called, I believe it's pronounced autotelic. And that is an experience which is the ends to itself. So that's where the Zen comes in. That's why I was talking about release. Is he says a lot of the people who describe his experiences is they're not concerned as much with the reward as they are with that experience. The reward is good, pleasure, but the experience itself is the means and the end.
Yeah.
And you can't have pleasure without the other side of the coin.
Right.
Pain.
Right. And pain is the doing of the experience
Right.
sometimes.
No pain.
No gain.
And this has been another
Edition of Book Club.
Well, I don't have a book today, but I sent myself a couple things I've written.
You did have a book.
Yeah.
Dharma Bums.
Oh, yeah, Dharma Bums. Hell yeah, dudes.
Everybody read Dharma Bums by Jack Kerouac.
But we're going to do some readings.
Yeah, I was going to just read some original stuff.
Let's hear it.
I always thought a tablet was a small tab of acid. The kind you take before church if you really want to see God. So I was the only one disappointed at the Christmas party when they said that everyone gets a tablet. Finally, a chance to break out my candy cane dildo, I thought. You know those things you have that you keep because there's a chance that one day you'll get to use it? Yeah, that's my red and white diagonal striped dildo. Can't bring myself to throw it away. Finally thought I was going to be vindicated, but instead I got a fucking nook. I'm reading a book about dildos. It's interesting, except for most, if not all of it, the majority of which I haven't actually read, because there is no book about dildos. I lie about how much I read, as well as what, how recently, and how I feel about it. I'm mostly indifferent to everything I read, in fact, and even those things that I find brilliant are forgotten instantly, and the work that contained them remains unfinished on my floor. I am, shall we say, a man of no discernible influence. I've realized, after much effort memorizing names, that I have no more heroes. No icons, no favorite bands, no favorite movies, no songs I like to hum, no restaurants I particularly enjoy, no books I can recommend, no cities I care to talk about, and no favorite actors in TV or movies. I do enjoy music and wine, fruit and meat, sky, sun, and mountain. I laugh often, cry occasionally, and speak very little, almost never. All the proper nouns have fallen from my brain. God is the only proper noun. Or maybe I'm just high on acid at church. A small tab, which I always thought was a tablet. And now I have this fucking nook.
I love that, dude. Let me read one and then you...
Yeah. Oh, I didn't know you had it. I didn't know you had it.
I got some stuff.
My
I
bad.
pulled some...
Caveman Poet Society is in order.
Some acting class meditations.
The floor recognizes Eben Britton.
The One-Eyed Shepherd and the Spider. I sat under 100-foot pine in front of a beautiful green field. Covered with soft, sunshine-brushed grass, the shepherd ran. One of his eyes was white. I sat and took in the moment, blue sky, green pine, and green grass, as far as the eye could see. The roots of my tree breaking the surface under me like earth's veins. I call the shepherd over, a smile draped across his face. He comes to give me a kiss. I pat his head and his ears, the soft fur of his neck and chest. He sits content to my right. And we watch as a barn spider drops down from somewhere, some branch up above, her quarter-sized body carrying a sack of eggs. The spindle of web drapes her down into the palm of my hand. Mama Spider, the creator, the spinner of nature's most beautiful displays of art, the expecting mother pregnant with life and opportunity in my left hand, the shepherd, the masculine loyalist, trusting, honorable, brave, and unwavering, lying close to my right, all in front of a field filled with sunshine and a soft breeze.
Caveman Poets, baby!
Ow! This has been another episode of the
Caveman Poet Society.
Great inaugural episode, guys.
But what's most important is that we're moving forward conceptually, and we're trying to push this thing into a new realm and deliver our truest goods to you, our caveman poets, or our mindful warriors.
So for the time being, check us out on Twitter at MindfulPod.
Yeah, we'll redirect everything and change their names.
Website,
Where not possible.
Yeah.
mindfulwarriorpodcast.com, soon to be the Caveman Poet Society, cavemanpoetsociety.com. On Instagram at Mindful Warrior Podcast. Facebook.
We'll be at Caveman Poet Society pretty quickly.
Okay.
Just change the name.
So at Caveman Poet Society on Instagram. Caveman Poet Society on Facebook. And check us out on iTunes, Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher. Am I forgetting anything, guys?
Google.
Check us out.
Google Play.
Google Play. Check us out. Subscribe. Leave us a review. Send us an email. We love to hear from you guys. If you have a great guest that you think should be on the Caveman Poet Society podcast, I suggest you send us a note. We love to hear from you.
Yeah, and thank you to everybody who has reached out to us. We really appreciate it.
Yes, we do.
We appreciate it very much. We appreciate you all listening.
We're still about all the same shit, y'all. Meditate, eat right, get your body moving, write. Write these thoughts. It's your first line of defense for yourself. Get your ideas on paper, you release yourself from them.
Everybody did a really good job on the pod. Said everybody did a really good job on the pod. Said everybody did a really good job on the pod. Said Eben did a really good job on the pod.
Thank you.
No problem, man.
Nathan did a really good job on the pod.
Thanks, guys. Jed,
Thank you.
really good job on the pod.
Really, really, really good job.
Said everybody did a really good job on the pod.
On the pod, on the pod, on the pod.
Everybody did 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 a really good job on the pod. Caveman Poets
Out!